Hey, this is Austin from Diesel Bookstore in Del Mar, and I'm going to give you a couple of book recommendations today. So the first one is for If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. If you've been reading a lot of novels over this self-isolation time and they're starting to get a bit stale, I think this book is fresh enough and kooky enough to be a nice antidote to that and, re-engage you with the book. It follows you. You're the protagonist. It's written in the second person. So in this book, in the first chapter, you go to a bookstore and you buy a book and you take it home and you start to read it. And you discover that it's actually a misprinted copy. The first 10 pages are just repeated throughout the book. So you go back to the bookstore and you tell the bookseller the problem, and they agree to give you a correct copy. But when you take that copy home and start to read that copy, you discover in it that there are 10 pages from another novel, and these 10 pages are even more intriguing than the novel that you actually purchased. So you go back to the bookstore and you try to find what this other mystery novel is. And this series of wild goose chases, so to say, continues throughout the book and is what propels the zany plot here. But I think a better indication of what this book is like is for me to just read you the first paragraph and have you see what the narration is like. So this is chapter 1, the first paragraph. You're about to begin reading Italo Calvino's new novel, If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler. Relax, concentrate, dispel every other thought. Let the world around you fade. Best to close the door. The TV is always on in the next room. Tell the others right away. No, I don't want to watch TV. Raise your voice. They won't hear you otherwise. I'm reading. I don't want to be disturbed. Maybe they haven't heard you with all that racket. Speak louder. Yell. I'm beginning to read Italo Calvino's new novel. Or if you prefer, don't say anything. Just hope they leave you alone. So if that sounds fun, maybe pick up If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Italo Calvino. So the next book I'd like to recommend is maybe for those of us who are in the abyss of despair on account of the pandemic. This is De Profundis by Oscar Wilde. De Profundis means from the depths. I have it in this collected works edition, but you can get a Penguin Classics of just De Profundis, and I think there's other paperback copies available. But what De Profundis is this very long letter that Oscar Wilde wrote while he was in prison. He was in prison basically for being a homosexual, and while in his last year of jail, he writes this letter to his lover that he had this disastrous affair with that actually ended with him being put on trial and going to jail. So in this letter, in the first half, he recounts the autobiographical details of his affair with the other man, Lord Alfred Douglas. But then he goes on to describe the emotional and mental journey that he had to undertake in order to get through his experience in jail, how to forgive this other man that had basically ruined his life, and how to still be optimistic about the future, even though his, this wonderful career he had was just torn to the ground. You often hear books being useful for maybe therapeutic reasons, or they can bring comfort in times of distress, such as a global pandemic. But very few books, I think, really live up to that, and I think De Profundis is one. I think this is a book that if you're in, an abyss of despair over this pandemic, this book can actually provide at least a little bit of comfort if that's what you're looking for. So De Profundis by Oscar Wilde and Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night, A Traveler. You